some of the creme de la creme, the top of the top.
Now, our next guest has always had a soft spot for Sacramento. Senior writer for The Athletic, senior NFL writer. And every year about this time, he comes out with his quarterback tiers, which are based on a survey of 50 NFL coaches and executives. It's always fun to go over the quarterback tiers with Mike Sando. Mike, how are you? And congrats on the new tiers. What's going on?
Hey, thanks. Not too much. Yeah, I just got back from the training camp trip, and it's fun. Always fun to discuss this stuff.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Before we get to that, Mike, why in the world are the 49ers always dealing with so many injuries? What is going on?
Well, yeah, that was a big problem for them last year. Hopefully it's not going to continue through this whole season. As long as they keep their quarterback upright, they'll have a chance, I think.
Okay. Yeah, we just found out today that Jordan Watkins, a rookie who played well Saturday, that he has a high ankle sprain, and Ayuk, they say he'll be back in about week 6. So anyway, we're trying to stay calm with all that. Mike, who are the new members of Tier 1 this year? Who are the new Tier 1 quarterbacks according to your panel?
Okay, Lamar Jackson, finally. I think that's been a long time coming. And then Matthew Stafford is too, but I wouldn't make too much of that because he was right on that border for a long time, very high in Tier 2, and I think he got 5 more votes in Tier 1. It just tipped him over. But Lamar went really rocketing higher. I think we've seen not only 2 really great years from him after some injury years, but also, they can no longer say he was holding them back in the playoffs. I think that was always an issue for him early in the career, where concerns about him as a passer showed up big in the playoffs, but he made the good passes in the playoffs this year. It's not his fault Mark Andrews dropped the ball with the game on the line. He really showed up.
Yeah, Mike, I'm surprised, a little embarrassed because I'm a faithful reader of your tiers and I'm a big Mike Sando fan. I didn't realize that Lamar hadn't been in Tier 1 before. And by the way, Tier 1 by definition, a Tier 1 quarterback can carry his team each week. The team wins because of him. He expertly handles pure passing situations. He has no real holes in his game. Were you surprised Matt Stafford made his way into Tier 1?
A little bit, yeah. The things that surprised me a little bit was Stafford, although there's context that I gave on that. And then I thought Jared Goff might fall down, even though he's been really good the last few years with Ben Johnson, his acclaimed offensive coordinator, leaving. I thought some of the votes for Goff might go with him, that there could be some doubters, but he actually moved up a little bit. There's been some debate over whether Jalen Hurts should be higher coming off a Super Bowl, but, they took the ball out of the quarterback's hands a little bit there with Saquon Barkley. I think it's weird seeing Aaron Rodgers down in Tier 3. No one really knows what to expect. There was a lot of differing opinions on him. I think you could justify any of those opinions. We just need to see. Yeah. So those are some. I think if you would have said Caleb Williams was going to be 4th among the rookies from last year, quarterbacks, that would have been a surprise at one point, but maybe not now.
Mike, one of the things that I find super, super interesting when I look at the tiers is Baker Mayfield. I'm a Baker Mayfield guy. I've always thought he is a capable quarterback, and he's proven that over the last couple of years, on top of some of the things that he did early in his career, taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the playoffs. He jumped up a tier. He moved not only a tier, but he jumped up and flew in front of the people, including Brock Purdy, who we love around here. Explain how Baker's, I guess, case was made this year by some of the panel.
Yeah, so Baker Mayfield, people had a high opinion of him. If you remember, obviously coming out of college, he was number 1 pick, and then he had a good year with Cleveland, and it went south. I think what's really, he got people's attention last year, meaning in 2023, good year with Tampa. I think when he stacked it again with a different offensive coordinator again, he's had back-to-back years with offensive coordinators who were first time on the job, had never been primary play callers before, and he put together, top 10 offense type of seasons. So I think that second year with yet another offensive coordinator was why he got the big push back into the range he was at maybe after his first year in the league, even a little higher than that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even when the Browns get it right drafting a quarterback, they end up getting it wrong. Right? Mike Sando with us. We're looking at his quarterback tiers in The Athletic based on votes from coaches and GMs. So Tier 1 is Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Matthew Stafford. And then, Mike, as you well know, Tier 2, wow, we have a real surprise at the top. How did Jaden Daniels make tier history, and what's the consensus on why he's been so good so early in his career?
Well, you're surprised that he's that high?
In a way, I mean, I know he's that good, but yeah, a little bit, I am.
Yeah, so I would say this: you look at where that franchise has been, right, and then not just having a good rookie season, but they went to the championship game.
Yeah.
So that's a huge validation. It's almost like getting a second season of results, right? When you do it in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Very good at the end of games, too, throughout this season. I think we saw early in the year, they were on TV against Cincinnati, and he dropped that perfect pass, to win the game and outduel Joe Burrow. So I think the combination of critical moments, the franchise's history, doing it in the playoffs, and then, winning without having a top defense was very hard to do. And then the dual threat component. I mean, he wasn't just a quarterback, but he I think he had over 800 yards rushing, which is very notable for him as well. So, people didn't want to put him all the way in tier one. They want to see another year, but they loved what they saw. He broke C.J. Stroud's record in my quarterback tiers, which go back to 2014 for the highest debut by a second-year player. So, Stroud regressed a little in his second year. We'll see what Daniels can do.
Mikey, I'll just go out there and say it. I'm not a huge Joe Burrow guy. Of course, I'm not disrespecting any of the panel, GMs, assistant coaches, all those type of people. I just don't see a lot of what a lot of people see. I get the 1 year taking his team to the Super Bowl, but I don't see the spectacularness that everybody sees with Joe Burrow. What are you hearing behind the scenes of why people? I mean, he's literally tied with Pat Mahomes on your list.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's seen as possibly the best pure passer in the league. Just being able to when you look at his numbers. I mean, they're obviously they had to do it last year without the defense. He had a terrible defense, so you're going to throw the ball more. But I think last year he led the league in pass completions, pass attempts, pass yards, pass touchdowns. It was pretty spectacular for keeping that team with a 9-8 record with really a bottom 5 defense. You would say they couldn't stop anybody. So they had to put it on him. It wasn't like they were defense and run game. It was Joe Burrow throwing the ball, and he's super accurate. He's a great competitor. Like you said, he's had his team in the Super Bowl, which, let's remember, it's the Bengals, right? I mean,
but they were great defensively that year.
They were great defensively that year, yeah. And so that's the difference. I mean, to be able to have a winning record with a bottom 5 defense is pretty rare. It takes a special quarterback to do that.
So, and Mike Sando with us from The Athletic. So Jaden Daniels probably would have been in tier 1, but it's almost like when Hall of Fame voters in the old days, they didn't want to put someone in on a first ballot. Is it just that the voters were like, we just have to see more based on what we've seen so far? He's phenomenal, but we need to see a little more. Is that it basically?
Yeah. I think there's something to that. When you come back the second year and now everyone's, had the film on you and they've broken down your offense, and then can you do it again? I think there's really something to that, especially when you look at the history. Cliff Kingsbury was with Kyler Murray. It was hot for a while, then wasn't. That may have had as much to do with Kyler as it did with Cliff Kingsbury. But let's just see, a little bit of a college flavor to that offense. Does that get figured out in the second year? And I think that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. So tier 2, by definition, quarterback who can carry his team sometimes, not as consistently. He can handle pure passing situations in doses and or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above tier 3. He has a hole or two in his game. Because Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, C.J. Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, and Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy barely made it into tier 2. What are the scouts and coaches thinking of Brock Purdy's game these days, Mike?
So I think the fact that, it fell off around him, some might have seen that as, hey, evidence that he should maybe go up in this poll, but they also finished 6-11. So if he overcame it, he didn't overcome it enough for them to win. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, and we can debate whether that's because he didn't have enough weapons around him. That very much, he wasn't throwing to, Jamar Chase last year, the last time I looked. So that could be a good point of debate. I thought I was a little bit more impressed with him last year, actually, handling what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But he lost a good number of the tier 2 votes he had, not enough to fall out of tier 2, but to put him on the precipice to where if he were to have just an okay season this year, I think he might go into tier 3. We'll see, though. He may bounce back.
Joined by Mike Sando of The Athletic. When you look at tier 2 before you kick down to tier 3, Mike, after Jaden Daniels, and I believe someone who's highly revered throughout the league is Justin Herbert, even though he hasn't had postseason success, and some would argue maybe not regular season success. The 8 to which is Jared Goff, CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. Could you argue that you heard from your panel that they're almost interchangeable? They all feel like, 1 week they could be better than the next. You got the Dak Prescotts in there. Like, where that kind of stint of your panel, did you kind of see they're all interchangeable?
Yeah, I think Jordan Love, sometimes when they haven't played as much, Jordan Love, maybe people still hold out hope that he will, climb higher out of that. I think that's certainly true for CJ Stroud too, that maybe those guys together. But I think with these other ones like Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, and probably to some extent Brock Purdy, just because of who he is physically, not super special physically, you feel like you know what they are. Right. So those are the types of guys that can look really good if it's right around them. But if it's not, they could struggle. And I think, or be good, but not great. I think that's kind of what tier 2 often is.
Yeah. Talking to Mike Sando here about his quarterback tiers. This year's tiers coming out today in the Athletic. I want to ask about Jalen Hurts, and full disclosure, Mike, we have a member of our show here, Kyle Draper, who's a big Eagles fan, and he's not here today, thank goodness, or we'd never hear the end of Jalen Hurts being ahead of Brock Purdy in the tiers. But Jalen Hurts, an interesting player, right? It's interesting to me that the panelists seem to have a hard time, and maybe they shouldn't, but they don't really separate team success from the quarterback that much, do they? I mean, if a team does well, the quarterback's ratings seem to go up and vice versa. Is that fair?
It's funny. The first show I did today was on ESPN, and the host was like all over me because he thought Hurts was too low as a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So there's a lot of different opinions on that, but I think Hurts is just perfectly placed to me because he's really done everything they've asked of him. We know that he has a very good team around him, and that the running game was a huge component. He's part of the running game, but Saquon Barkley, they kind of minimized the quarterback's role. I don't think he's somebody you absolutely fear in the 2-minute drill like you do maybe some of the super top quarterbacks in the league. But he's good. You can obviously win a championship with him. So I think he's just a solid 2. But if you put him on the 49ers last season, I don't know if he would have produced better than Purdy did. Right. Isn't that a reasonable thing to say? I guess that could just consistent bit too. Now, that being said, if he was there, maybe then Kyle Shanahan changes the offense and it's more of a dual threat quarterback run thing, and maybe he does too well. Right? It's some of these guys you got to build around what they do best, and for somebody like Hurts, it's a little bit of a different skill set. He could look really bad in an offense if you just forced him into an offense that didn't take advantage of some of his other abilities.
Mike, I find it super interesting as I kick down to tier 3, and tier 3 is a quarterback that is a legitimate starter but needs a heavier running game and or defense component to win. A lower volume drop back passing offense suits him best. You talked about Aaron Rodgers being in the tier 3, which is probably the lowest he's ever been in his whole career. I would love for somebody on Pittsburgh to ask him about his tier placement. But the 2 that I find very, very interesting, and I think it is kind of where we see the type of talent. We talk about tier 2. I think if you ask most people, Trevor Lawrence, who's right there at 18, he retained his tier in tier 3. So even coming into last year, most people felt that he was a below a top 15 quarterback.
Yeah. So last year, I believe Kyler, Tua, and Trevor Lawrence were all about where they are this year, high tier 3, which is crazy because they're all making huge salaries. They all have $50 million contracts, super high earners, but they haven't been able to really drive success of their teams. Kyler Murray's had bad defenses. Trevor Lawrence has been hurt, and Tua has been hurt as well. So there's limitations with those guys also. What is Trevor Lawrence amazing at, right? I mean, not really anything. Tua is amazingly accurate, but when things fall apart around him, he can go down with the ship real fast. Late in a game when he's got to carry it, I think it's harder for him to have to, as a passer. And then Kyler's been, hurt, and he obviously has stature, and his height is a factor for him.
I wanted to ask you about a guy that 49er fans going to see a couple times this year. I believe he was the biggest gainer in this year's tiers, Sam Darnold with the Seahawks. What do people what do the voters like about Sam Darnold's game?
I think a lot of people liked him coming out, then obviously cooled on him. It didn't go well for him. The way last season ended was scary for people who, had cooled on him and saw him struggle in the playoffs. Really took a lot of sacks, just didn't play as well. One of the interesting comments I got on him was that, he replaced Geno Smith. Geno Smith may be a better quarterback on a bad team, and Darnold might be a better quarterback on a good team. And some of that is just because, like, Geno Smith likes to kind of wing it, take some chances. And so if you need that type of variance for a bad team to win some games, he might be your guy. Darnold on bad teams has really struggled, but on a good team last year was sensational for a lot of the year. So I guess maybe if that's true, then how good is Seattle, right? They got rid of their number one receiver, at least on paper, in DK Metcalf. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is probably their true number one, and they're going to lean in the run game. They're going to totally change their scheme and run the ball, probably try to take the pressure off of Sam Darnold. He's cheaper and younger, maybe with more room for development than Geno Smith. But I think the main reason they made the change was simply because it's a new coach the last couple of years in Seattle. I think Geno Smith was loyal to Pete Carroll. I think DK Metcalf was too. I think Tyler Lockett was too. I think this is a changing of the guard in Seattle to kind of go with the new coach, with his guys, in a more run-oriented offense.
Yeah, by the way, Sam Darnold was the biggest gainer over last year, Jay.
Sam spinning it, as they like to say. Sam spins it. Mike, excuse me, what is you kind of touched on where I wanted to ask you, what was one of the most interesting facts or interesting quotes or, phrases that you got from one of the scouts or coaches on any of the quarterbacks that really has resonated with you?
So to me, it was on Caleb Williams, because obviously the number one quarterback taken in the 2024 draft, he was the first of 6 in the first round. I think after 1 year, everyone could say, hey, the Bears were a bad situation. Still love Caleb Williams, but voter after voter, coach after coach, exec after exec, really raised questions about his ability to quickly process the game. He took a ton of sacks.
Yeah.
And so that was one used the word alarming. So no one's writing him off, but to see the obvious excitement over Jaden Daniels and everything he brings to the table, the real optimism on Bo Nix. I think there's, mostly positive reviews for Drake May, who was in a really bad situation. But for Caleb Williams to be the number one pick in that draft, consensus. I mean, no one was questioning taking him. And then after 1 year, to have a lot of people say the same thing, I don't know if it's a fatal flaw, but definitely a potential flaw. I thought that was pretty telling.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, if you haven't already, check out Mike Sando's quarterback tiers in The Athletic. Mike, thank you. You do such a great job. It's great information from experts, and the way you frame it, bring it all together is fabulous. We appreciate the time to catch up with you and break it down. Thanks, Mike. We hope to talk to you again soon, and enjoy the rest of the preseason, if such a thing is possible.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Mike Sando from The Athletic.